Greetings and welcome to this edition of
Positronic Hypersonic.
I'm Barry P. Cook, and I'm here to talk to you about the latest episode of The Boys. It was called Wisdom of the Ages. And as it starts, at a vault lab, there's a security breach, and it turns out to be Homelander bringing a Carvel cake for the basement folks there who know him as John. And he's being very nice, but it's creepy as of course, and everyone there is freaked out as usual. Butcher has a fall in the shower, and Huey has to face his father's brain death. Starlight visits the president-elect to talk about how to kill the vice president-elect, but she hasn't figured out a way to do it yet, so they talk about how to get his anti-superhero legislation passed, which Starlight thinks she can help make a reality by rallying the people as Starlight in a new costume if need be. Frenchie and his beau Colin have a morning after conversation about Colin's tragic backstory, which, as we know, involved his parents and sister being murdered by Frenchie, though he doesn't know it was Frenchie. Starlight is dismayed to find that Firecracker has set up a big stage right across from the Starlighters' headquarters to promote her new Truth Bomb show. Sister Sage sends some of the Seven out to work the social media and turn people against Starlight, and Deep tries to get with her again, but she says that he repulses her. Firecracker tells Sister Sage that at first she thought she was uppity, but instead she's found that she's one of the good ones, which is totally cringeworthy. Anyway, Butcher, Mother's Milk, and Frenchie show up at Starlighter headquarters to lend their help, but Starlight tells Butcher to screw off, basically, because she doesn't trust him. But Mother's Milk says that he has to stay, so she goes along with it. And when Butcher asks why Firecracker has a bug up her ass about Starlight, she pretends not to know why. Homelander straight up murders one of the people at the lab who was involved with his creation and testing by making him go into the same oven that they tested the flammability of Homelander's skin in when he was first being created, much to the horror of everyone there. Huey approaches A-Train because he wants A-Train to get him a dose of Compound V to save his father, and while they're meeting about it, someone has both Huey and Kimiko in the crosshairs of a sniper rifle. A-Train seems to agree to do it, but apparently all of the Compound V is locked up in Homelander's apartment, so it won't be easy to get. Kimiko, finding out about this, is furious that he's going to try this crazy thing, and just then they're fired on. So Kimiko helps a hobbled Huey get to a nearby office where she tapes up his ankle with a ruler and gives him some makeshift weapons and protection items that she makes by breaking up and MacGyvering some surrounding office materials and furniture. Meanwhile, Deep and Firecracker are singing a Jeffrey Osborne song badly on the stage across from Starlighters headquarters, which is funny because Jeffrey Osborne was from Rhode Island, where I'm. Butcher asks Mother's Milk to get Ryan away from Homelander if he dies before he can do it, and to raise him, before they both confront Firecracker, who's not happy that they killed her friend, Splinter. Apparently, they have dirt on her involving her having been with a 15-year-old when she was 28, and they're blackmailing her with it, but she decides to just go ahead and release the information herself, right from Butcher's phone, before going on stage and announcing what she did, and it turns into a come-to-Jesus redemption moment. And she goes on to tell a story about a rescue once pulled off by Starlight, which accidentally blinded a hostage when Starlight was still learning how to control her abilities. Apparently, though, Butcher managed to get the keys to Firecracker's trailer, and he sends Frenchie in to toss it. Meanwhile, A-Train goes snooping through Homelander's apartment looking for some Compound V and finds it in a false bookcase fridge after first coming across what appeared to be refrigerated breast milk. And then he's interrupted by Ashley, who's also there for some reason. Homelander asks for forgiveness for killing the guy Frank in the oven from Marty, the director of the department. And Marty says he forgives Homelander because these things happen, but apparently Homelander still has an axe to grind with Marty because he apparently once caught Homelander taking care of himself on one occasion when he was locked in a cell and nicknamed him Squirt because of it. So Homelander makes him take care of his own business right in front of everyone so that they can all laugh at him. And when Marty has trouble getting things to work, Homelander threatens to laser his business off if he doesn't get it going, which is exactly what ends up happening. But then a woman named Barbara shows up and tells Homelander to put Marty out of his misery, which he does by crushing his head with his foot, after which she asks him if they can talk privately. Apparently, she's kind of an authority figure that I guess he somewhat respects more than these other people. Anyway, Kimiko and Huey take on the people who are after them in the middle of an office building, and Kimiko even gets blown apart, like vivisected by a grenade launcher, And Huey has to cut up a guy with an X-Acto knife, which results in arterial spray getting all over him. Kimiko grows herself back together and tries to make a connection with the woman who was attacking her, but apparently that woman was forced into a fighting pit by Kimiko at some point in the past. So she rejects Kimiko's peace offering, and Kimiko and Huey walk away. Frenchie, meanwhile, invades Firecracker's trailer while Firecracker reveals to the public that Starlight once had an abortion, which happened when she got pregnant by Huey. And it sets Starlight off, causing her to go and kick Firecracker's ass with cameras rolling, while Frenchie gets attacked by a guy with stretchy abilities in Firecracker's trailer before Butcher shows up and breaks the guy's arm off after freezing it with a fire extinguisher. But the stretchy guy uses his other arm to choke Butcher, but Butcher somehow manages to completely explode the guy, but they don't show it. The screen just goes white and the guy kind of gets exploded. Homelander takes Barbara into the cell where he was once held when he was being created and tested, and they talk about what he just did, as well as about how he killed a bunch of doctors and nurses when he was first born, making everyone except her terrified of him. And she reminds him that he could have broken out at any time but never did, because he couldn't stand the idea of them being disappointed in him, which was apparently the case because they programmed it into him to need approval and love so that he would be obedient. She tells him that it doesn't matter what he does with her or anyone else because he'll still always have an insatiable need for love and approval. Colin tries to patch up Frenchie after his incident, but Frenchie rebuffs him out of guilt and confesses what happened to Colin's family. And then Colin punches him a number of times and almost chokes him to death before telling him that he'll kill him if Frenchie ever comes near him again, and storms off. Sage, meanwhile, tells Deep she wants him to poke her kind of through the eye with an ice pick because she knows her brain will grow back, but that during the interim, she doesn't have to be the smartest person in the world. And in exchange, she says she'll have sex with him, so he does it, and her personality changes completely, at which point they get down to business. Starlight's very distraught over her secret having been revealed, and apparently her mother won't even talk to her. The president-elect tells Starlight that her beating up Firecracker cost him a whole bunch of Republican votes for his bill, so it won't pass now, which of course was the plan, which is why they incited her. And because of it, he won't be affiliated with her anymore. A-Train gives Huey the Compound V, and Huey forgives A-Train for accidentally killing his girlfriend way back in season 1. Butcher confronts Huey about his plan to give the Compound V to his dad, and says that giving it to his father will only make things worse, but he doesn't seem to listen. Though later, when push comes to shove, he seemingly decides not to go through with it. And when he goes out to get coffee in the hospital hallway, it would seem that his mother slipped the father some Compound V somehow, and the father wakes up. Right before the episode ends, we see Homelander covered in blood and human remains in an elevator after he apparently ripped apart everyone in that department except Barbara and left all their parts strewn about the cell where they used to hold him, with Barbara locked in there with them as he has a maniacal smile on his face in typical Homelander fashion. So once again, I enjoyed this episode, mostly for the Homelander parts, which were intense as hell. Antony Starr is an amazing actor. He does a great job in this part, and Homelander, he's creepy as all get out, and I love every second of it because it's an examination of a fractured psyche, and it's just fascinating to watch. And it's fascinating to watch the people be scared shitless of him because they know he's out of his mind. What I didn't understand is what this really does for Homelander. At the end of the last episode, his fractured psyche told him he had to go back home, back to the beginning, if he was ever going to get past his humanity and become the real him fully. And I mean, I guess you could say there was a catharsis in him torturing and maiming and killing the people that tortured and maimed and killed him. But some of those people were innocent. They weren't there when he was there. And so was getting revenge on them really supposed to mend his psyche and or at least push him to the point where he no longer had to deal with his humanity? Because I don't know that makes any sense, because it's just more violence. Like, I don't know, maybe for him it's a twisted kind of catharsis, but to hear Barbara talk, he's never going to get past his humanity because they programmed it into him. So I'll be interested to see what he's like after this. It'll be interesting to see what he becomes now that he's done what his fractured psyche told him to do. The plot twist with the Compound V and Huey's father was interesting. I'd said that I didn't care about that plot line, and I really didn't. But now if his father's going to be a soup, that should be interesting to see how that whole dynamic plays out, especially since the character's played by Simon Pegg, who I love. So we'll see how that works. Speaking of actors that I love, we didn't get any Jeffrey Dean Morgan this episode. I don't know what they're doing, wasting an actor like Jeffrey Dean Morgan on this character that they're not using, so that's a little annoying. I like the whole heat up of the conflict between Starlight and Firecracker. That Firecracker boy, she's something else. And I did enjoy seeing Starlight kick her ass. But of course, now there's going to be fallout from that, and that's not a good thing. I still don't really care about the Frenchie Kamiko Colin thing. That's all wasted time as far as I'm concerned. If any of it, I care about the Kamiko part. I want to see her resolve her past and be able to talk again, and I want her to be okay. But other than that, I don't care. I don't care about Frenchie. I don't care about Colin. I don't care about any of that. And I'm hoping that we do get Starlight back in her costume, even though the purpose she was going to get into it again for is kind of now moot. But I wonder if she's still going to put the costume back on. I hope she does eventually. We didn't get anything with Homelander's son this episode, which is kind of good because I don't really like that plot very much. And we didn't get really much in the way of Butcher stuff. He was kind of in it, but not really. So, of course, I'd like to see more with Butcher in every episode. But that's really it. I'm looking forward to next week. I'm going to get out of here for now, but I will be back to do a breakdown and review of the next episode once it's released. Until I return, I wish you peace and long life.